that you have to follow, otherwise cataloging is not going to be right.
Okay, so the SQL search, the back end of the database, which is the SQL, has to be very specific and unique to that data that they're trying to extract. Otherwise, it's, garbage in, garbage out. Okay,
Exactly.
so you need to make sure that the syntax, remember we spoke about syntax, is so important when retrieving data. It's got to be specific to what they're actually needing. So maybe you can write that in your queries. The SQL needs to be. Yep. It's recording.
Okay. So, and there's lots of technical ways in which we manage a catalogue screen as against a stock item screen and all that sort of thing. But I don't think it's necessary that you know all of that stuff. However, the next really important module is the circulation module, and that just means how the resources are going to be circulated to users, to borrowers. So you can imagine that we need to have, if we're now going to have real-time transactions, we need to have those two databases, the borrower's database and the catalogue database, right. Because if those things don't match, if there's not a borrower ID, then that person can't borrow it. If there's a catalogue record that's not quite right, then it just won't show up. You won't be able to retrieve that information. So they really need to be talking to each other. Then the circulation module, that other database over the top of that, has to match those two. So that when a borrower comes along with their barcode on your library card, we can scan the barcode, up comes the borrower record, we then scan the book, which means in effect it's talking to the catalogue record, but they're both talking to the circulation module, and as soon as that book is wanted and loaned out to you, that happens in real time. So the person who's right behind you and wants to borrow that book obviously can't, because immediately it's gone, not gone from the catalogue, but gone from, from being in circulation. So if you're borrowing a book and somebody is over there at the OPAC terminal, a second later, searching for that same book, it will say on loan. Okay, so that's, and similarly, in that circulation module, you can do reservations, you can do returns, loans, and it all happens in real time. Any questions about that? Also within that circulation module, then we can generate overdue lists. And that's, now is that batch or is that real time? It's not actually working at the moment, but that's beside the point.
It would be batch because
it would be
it's
batch,
not,
wouldn't it?
Because you would do it at one point during
and you
the
do
week.
a chunk of them,
yes.
So it's batch. I was pretty sure it was. So again, in that overdue module, which is inside the circulation one, you can actually set it to happen at a particular time. So then the things that are, and again, because we've set parameters for that to happen, so a book is overdue after 15 days, so it all knows that, and we generate that overdue list, and then it just goes out.
But you do a whole collection of it at the one time, because that's why the teachers in their pigeonhole will have the list of anyone that's got in your homeroom that's got overdue. So that will be done maybe at the end of the fortnight or at the end of the week, and they would do it in the least busiest time of the library. So downtime. Batch is always done during the least busiest time. The other thing is just in keeping in mind that maybe your local library, their returns might not be batch. So remember, you were specific to Santa Sabina Library. Your libraries, I know that Castle Hill Library, my local library, it's real time, because when I go back and put my library in the chute at the it automatically, it's got like a scanner, it's like an RFID, so it scans that code, and then it automatically updates the database very quickly. Okay, so that would be real time.
Whereas
But
we
in-
have to wand ours in.
Yeah.
So every morning, or 3 times a day, we look in our return chute and we get the batch of books and we wand them into the returns module. As soon as we've done that, it's updated, but it has to wait for us
Yep.
to do that batch. Yeah.
Does that make sense? Think about your information systems diagram. Is there any hardware you want to talk about? Processors, software? Think about analysing. Maybe does anyone want to ask a question about the database and analysing? What are they actually doing to analyse the data?
Because the reporting module is a whole other module that I hadn't, because that's sort of a back end thing as well. But we do run lots of different kinds of reports. I mean, the overdue reports is one, obviously, but we could run a report on
Cataloging reports, stock take
yes,
reports.
maybe the books that are
Most popular.
most borrowed, most you can what books has year 8 borrowed this year, what books has Mundawarra borrowed this year in year 11, what books have
Catalogue for the last 2 months or
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that. So you can extract
so it can be a
information.
circulation report
So
as in borrowing, or it can be a catalogue report. What we're just about to do some catalogue reports because we might want to know whether anybody ever borrows art books from this library. So we can tell that.
Do you then, after the data you've collected, analyse through your reports, because that would be the analyser creating the reports through the SQL and the searches, do you then make future predictions?
Absolutely,
What are
we
some
do.
of the future predictions that you probably make in order to enhance the performance
Yep.
of the library or
Yep.
movement of books?
So we might here, because we're a school, we would do that in lots of different ways that would be quite different from a public library. Let's take Discovery as an example. Discovery is a new topic area, as you know. So we, besides resourcing that, buying a whole lot of new resources for that, we would get some reports on perhaps subject areas that are similar, like journey, like personal growth, like a whole lot of, again, librarian kind of speak subject headings, which we know would have links to the topic area Discovery. So we'd run a report on that. We would then look at the titles and we would analyse those titles and think, gosh, we haven't got enough for advanced English, extension English. Or we haven't got enough, we've got a lot of fiction, but we haven't got enough poetry. Or we've hardly got any movies in that. Or another example would be what we've just been doing at the moment. We've been having a look at our non-fiction shelves, and again, this is something that we might do regularly. We've been manually pulling a whole lot of things off that are a bit old and horrible that nobody would ever really want to use. So then we can actually wand those into a file, scan those into a file in the system, analyse that to see what titles or authors are worth having. Then we would reorder. Or if they're not too bad, we might actually just recover and relabel. So there's lots of things that, probably every day we would be looking at some kind of report, analysing it and making some predictions about the needs for future resourcing, or like real time, or not real time, sorry, I shouldn't use a computing term for, it's not what I mean, but Year 6 is coming up tomorrow to borrow books for the library. What is it that we've got that's suitable for Year 6 right now? So we run a report. We analyse that. We think, oh, gosh, we haven't got enough, or we've got plenty. We can have 3 classes at once. So, there's a myriad of things. Stock take is the other processing, I suppose, that we do kind of once a year, and that's where we look at, again, that's batch processing. So we would scan a batch of, let's say, all of the English resources. So we know that that's from Dewey number 800 to 899.9999. We would scan all of those into a portable device. Then we come back to our PC, we upload that batch of scanned files. Then we run a report, and that report can tell us what's missing because it talks to the catalogue. So, you know, you've got 1,002 books in this section, but you've actually only scanned in 970. So that means there's, you know, or a third, whatever, missing. So that tells us one thing. It also tells us that some are out of order. In that batch that we've scanned in the 800s, we actually had 3 books that were in the 300s and 5 books that were in the 900s. So they've been shelved out of place. So that's another kind of report that we're always sort of looking
Which
at.
helps us to fix the problem with, you know, to return books in their own destination, and also to find the missing, or try to find the missing ones,
Yeah.
maybe elsewhere.
We've also got third-party databases that talk
Okay.
to AMLIB as well. Is that worth, like our ebook collection?
Yes, that's
Yes.
important because, yeah.
So we have a database that we call Wheeler's ebooks that we purchase. Well,
Because
no.
I think I remember borrowing ebooks from the library. You've got ebooks from
We
the
have
library.
the
Yeah, I
ebooks,
needed
yes.
the app.
Yes, that's yes.
So you need to
So-
download the app. That then app talks to the database.
That's right. So we have 2 of those. One's called Wheeler's and one is called BorrowBox. And but both of them, you download the app, you log in with your ID, and it allows you to borrow ebooks that we've purchased. So that you can search in our catalogue, and it will tell you. Well, you click on the link, it will take you to either BorrowBox or Wheeler's. So we have a SIP2 protocol, which joins those things together. Do you want to explain what a SIP2 protocol? It's so
I haven't heard of that protocol,
Okay.
but obviously the protocol, as you know what a protocol is, it's the language that they both actually talk in order for them to communicate.
Yep.
So both databases are different. Somehow they're different, right? Because there's obviously the 2. There's the what are they called? Something?
BorrowBox,
BorrowBox and
Wheeler's, and they don't talk to each other.
No,
they
they-
both talk to AMLIB.
That's right. So the protocol is a set of rules or agreed language that those 2 ebooks, the database, are actually going to talk to. So it's a specific protocol designed for ebooks for
Yeah.
that catalogue system. So it's not like a
SIP, S-I-P, capital S, capital I, capital P, 2.
yeah. So it's not like a specific for internet protocols that we are accustomed to. It's not a protocol we know that a protocol is something that allows 2 dislike things to actually communicate, same language. So that's what we mean with that protocol.
And I'm assuming that the IP part of it stands for Internet Protocol.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the S stands for, but it makes the SQL database, we need one. You need one for each of the third-party databases that you've got that you need to connect to. So we have one that joins, that goes from the SQL server through it
Yep.
to Belinda, to BorrowBox, and then back to AMLIB.
Okay. So a SQL server is a SQL server is something that is designed for the web. So it's a database that's online. So if you're accessing a database that's online, you use like a SQL server. And that allows, it's basically the back end. It's like a server that's stored on the network somewhere on the internet, okay? That allows these databases to communicate with one another. It's worth looking up. So maybe you can get more information off the internet with that one, but it is worth
Okay,
it.
and how do you have ebooks and, you know, we all can borrow books and all that kind of stuff. If someone has the app, Is there only a set amount of people who can borrow the book at a time?
Yes, yes. So it's they work. It's a good question, Marguerite. They work exactly like a physical book. So once the e-book from Borrow Box is borrowed, it's just as if you'd borrowed it off the shelf. It says out, not on loan, and then it actually, we've got it set up so it actually, for a 2-week loan, so it actually drops off. So if you haven't read it tough, you can't just keep it at home on your bedside table. It's gone.
Sorry, on that, because what happens with an ebook, it's like having software installed on a machine. You have to buy the license. If I've got 5 computers and I want Microsoft, and if I want Adobe Suite on the 5 machines, I have to buy 5 licenses for those machines. So you can't just have one and just go, oh, well, anyone can borrow it. So the ebook I think would work the same. It depends on how many licenses you've got. Would that be right? If you've got how many copies?
So like 20 people can't borrow the same ebook.
That's right. That's right. Just like 20 people can't borrow that copy of that. Yeah, yeah. We do have other like third-party databases that work slightly differently. One's called Library Thing for Libraries, and the other one's called Libraries Anywhere. And for that to work, and they're apps for your iPad, for those to work, we have to do batch uploads of our records. So every time we buy a new lot of books, let's say, and we upload them into the catalogue, we also need to upload those same records into Library Thing for Libraries, which you've probably never used it, but you can download an app on your iPad, and anyway, you don't have to actually be connected to our OPAC, so you can search for Santa Sabina Library. You could be, on holidays somewhere, and you're looking for a book or something, and it will tell you, yes, Santa Sabina has it, and so does Burwood Library, Strathfield Library, Concord Library, libraries that are around us.
Oh, right.
Which is kind of cute.
So you can check the books in
Yeah.
if they're not here.
Yeah.
And what was it, library?
Library, that's called Library Anywhere, L-I-B, I think the app is L-I-B Anywhere.
While I've got you on that, that would mean that the network here then has to have a line somewhere to a cloud, hypothetical cloud, the
yep.
internet, that sits on the internet. You only need like some kind of logon. So you need to consider that in your diagram of the topology. So it also connects to the internet for the ebooks. Somehow you need to show that, represent that.
Wait, is that only for the ebooks or for everything?
The cloud bit?
Well, the
The Library Anywhere. Yeah. So that's for everything. So it's our whole catalogue records are uploaded into that. Yeah. But we have to remember to do that. It doesn't. We have to remember, and that each time we upload books into the catalogue. Oh gosh, I have to upload them into Library Anywhere as well, which is kind of a bit old-fashioned in a way. I can see that probably will change.
storing and retrieving information from the TPS. So explain, justify the storing and retrieving. So where do you store all the data? I assume that goes into a server?
Yes.
And whereabouts is the server sitting in the library?
The server is in IT.
So through cabling?
Yep.
It's through cable, so somehow it's wired through the cabling
Yep.
around here.
You'll see blue cords coming all around the place in there, and yeah.
So we'd call that that would be a database server, because the library this is a database, so that would be sitting on a database server.
Yep.
Okay. Backup procedures. How do you do backup? What if the system goes down, and we had the experience of Strathfield all shutting down? School has to continue. Students want to borrow books, students who want to return. What do you do in terms of backup procedures, paper records, off-site storage, recovery?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so our backup is done along with the whole school backup. So I don't know, every hour, I think it is, the server room does backups of all of our systems. We used to,
So while you're there, that backup system would be put on a RAID system. You might need to look up RAID, but it's a multitude of hard drives stacked up on top of each other, and it would actually just store that there. And there's a different procedures for it. So they might use partial backup, incremental backup. I'll find out that information from IT because I'm not sure. And then they use the grandfather, father, son backup systems, I think. Is that
yeah,
right?
they do.
Use that?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we used to then, you know, in the old days, before you backed up to a hard drive, you'd back up to a portable hard drive and you'd take it off-site. The library doesn't do that anymore. That's all done through IT. So yes, you would need to check what their procedures are. If something goes down, let's say the Strathfield blackout occurs again, we have to make sure that we don't add any borrowers during that time, add any catalogue records during that time. And let's say there was a class in here borrowing, and if we are backing up every hour, if there was a class in here borrowing for a period and the server went down, let's say, 50 minutes after the next backup, then that's the previous backup, then that is gone. So, but if a class comes in and the system is down and people still want to borrow, then we keep paper records of just the borrowing. So we would stop all our other processes until the system's up again, but we never stop our borrowing processes. So we write things down on paper. Then obviously we have to input that data when the system's back up again, which happened that day. What else?
There's compare and contrast the user interface for real-time processing and batch processing. That's the user interface, so that's the forms. What I will do, I'll come at some stage and maybe take a photo of the batch screen and the real-time screen, and then everyone will have access. I'll upload that to Haiku, the images, and then you've got access to them, because it's about comparing and contrast what information is on the batch that isn't on the real, etc. Okay? Discuss how the information could be used by management to assist the operations of the library. We've spoken about that, so working out which textbooks are needed, what's on the reading list, from generating from your queries and things like that. What are some of the ethical issues that may be associated with the TPS, and can we suggest suitable strategies that would assist in preventing this issue reoccurring in the future? I suggested something with the students, and I know that this happens, and I address the students then and there, where students take somebody else's card and they borrow.
Yep.
I mean, for me, that would be some ethical issue in terms of privacy, security. What if the card's stolen? And they use that to borrow books and things like that. So I don't know.
And then that has implications as you imagine. If you imagine you've borrowed a book with somebody else's card, and we have photos on our system to try to, avert that, because sometimes your photos on your card, you don't look the same in year 11 as you looked in year 6. But of course, all the information generated, like all the overdues, all the notices, all the letters, go to the borrower, i.e. the owner of that card, and they're the ones who are liable for that resource. So if a borrower has done the wrong thing and either given their card to somebody else or lost their card and somebody's picked it up and used it, then that has implications for the owner of that card if it's been used like that. It can't be used for printing now. It used to be able to, but that's because of the whole network issue. You can't borrow somebody else's card now and print. It used to be able to.
Why is that? Sorry.
It's the way that the printing is now changed. You used to be able to, how did it, I can't even remember, back 2 years to see how it worked. But now, if you want to print something, you have to,
Log in as yourself.
you log in as yourself because the network
Release
recognises you.
Yeah.
I mean, if you knew somebody else's login and password, you could log in as somebody else, but that's another
That's
ethical
another issue as well that you need to maintaining security and.
Yeah.
It says suggest suitable strategies that would assist in preventing this issue recurring.
Are you talking about the printing part of it as well? Just
Yep, the general printing, borrowing. So I mean, this is for you to think about later in terms of make suitable suggestions that would assist in preventing this issue from reoccurring in the future. So maybe you can think of even investing in technology. Thumb. You come
Yeah.
here, you put your thumb on, it recognises your thumb ID, away you go, borrow.
There are a lot of library management systems that do work on a thumbprint or retina recognition as well.
Very expensive for a school library
yeah,
to be investing in. But that is a possible strategy if money wasn't limitation.
I know, it's not something, yes.
Describe the alternatives that are implemented when the TPS is not available. So what happens when you did mention when we had the power surge here, but in terms of one-off, do you go back to manual?
Yes.
Pen and paper. Is there like a manual form that you fill
There is
out?
a form that we fill in like a barcode numbers from the stock tag, each stock item, and the borrower name.
Okay.
And then later on we enter it with our systems.
It's back online. Okay. And the last question is radio frequency identification, RFID. Compare and contrast your RFID collection system with traditional manual and barcode collection systems. I know that you've got this RFID because it zaps every time you leave the library.
Yep.
The girls aren't really, so we haven't actually spoken about this hardware.
Yeah.
Can you explain to them how it's in the book and what the...
Yeah, we don't have an integrated RFID system. I would love one, but it's going to cost about $60,000 to transfer this library over to an integrated RFID. I'll explain the difference in a minute. So currently, we have to use a two-step process. So we have a barcode on our book, which identifies it in the catalogue record, just like you have a barcode on your card, which identifies you as the borrower. Then we have this tag, which talks to the gates. So this is alarmed, if you like, and it talks to the radio frequency that's the field that's around those two gates, and that field is reasonably wide. You might notice that we have quite a gap, what do you think, about 1.5 meters maybe, between the gate before the first bookshelf. If we had it any closer, they'd be going beep, 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 beep all the time. So that's sort of how big the radio frequency field is.
About 2 metres, isn't it?
I guess it is
2
about,
metre radius
yeah.
or something.
In a fully integrated RFID system, though, it's a different kind of tag system. You can have it integrated in your barcode, so you're only putting one tag on. And, you know, remember when Ms. Suka said that her public library has got as soon as she puts it in, it knows that it's been returned and it's back online. That's part of the RFID. You can also have what we call a self-check system. So that's where the thumb and the retina thing would be more. So you don't have to come to the desk anymore. You just go to a self-check-in system, put the book on. It's a bit like scanning your groceries, you know, and on the thing yourself. You bring up your borrower card, however you want to do it, flash it, thumb it, whatever. Put the book on, and it's done. And then it's all integrated with the catalogue and with the gates and everything else.
I just thought
Sadly, we don't have that.
prediction, just in communications. Imagine this, Internet of Things, right? Every book, obviously, on the internet, IPv6, right? So every book is on the internet. You can track it, where it is, etc. It's a bit scary, really. the person somehow has some tag that identifies who they are, right? So the person doesn't even have to skip. All they have to do is grab the books they want, walk out the library, and it's already